Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to another edition of Stop, Look, and Listen. I'm your host, LeTroy Gardner. This week, we have philanthropist, we have an entrepreneur, podcast host. He's just doing a lot of amazing work that you're going to see a lot of in the near future. He's the founder of the Ride the Wave Foundation, which is a mission-driven organization committed to building an all-inclusive modern campus for individuals experiencing homelessness. And then he's also the owner of NCK Equipment, a process equipment company serving industries such as food, beverage, and pharmaceuticals. We have Jeff Fisher. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thank you for having me and the great intro. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem, man. Good to see you.
See ya.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I highlighted, your background, but, feel free to delve into it a little bit further if you would like.
Yeah, absolutely. I was born in Morristown, New Jersey. Grew up in Parsippany. I had a good childhood. It wasn't bad. I used to ride my bike everywhere. A lot of friends, pretty social. I'm a project manager. I have a project management degree. I've been mostly in sales too. So I didn't take the traditional path at all. Instead of going right to college, I wanted to party with friends and things like that. I was pretty distracted in my life. I was working for Singular Wireless before it merged with AT&T at a mall, and a gentleman named Stephen Klein came in, and I sold him a BlackBerry, and he liked me. So he owned a staffing agency, took me under his wing a little bit. I tailored up a resume, worked for VitaQuest International. And I knew when I worked there, I wanted to be in sales and I wanted to make a career out of it. And I didn't know that this journey would take me this far, you know, struggling with maybe a little bit of anxiety or bipolar previously. Um, it's interesting how, life's journey can go. And for me, I always wanted to own a business. I've always been driven to do something outside of the box, and I'm lucky and grateful to be where I'm at right now.
hmm
And it
What was
doesn't come
the
without struggles too, man. I like a lot of things right now that are going on with the business, but I'm willing to go through that process.
right? Just talk about that turning point for you that made you realize that you wanted to dedicate your efforts to help individuals experiencing homelessness.
I mean, I was just going through the motions, living my life normal, running a business. One thing that I felt was really important early on, I understood the importance of developing a culture, a positive culture within my company, NCK Equipment, who I bought about 3 years ago from the founder, Ray Marone. And NCK was named after Ray's three daughters, Nicole, Kristen, and Kathleen. And he was a great guy. Somebody that was the most positive person consistently I ever met. Hey, how you doing? Very high energy, great spirits. COVID hit, we were working remote. We're going to be fine. Just keep cranking. That type of person. So I wanted to embody that, encapsulate that into the culture of the company. And it was a blessing that I became the wave. We used to say to each other when we were doing sales, "You riding the wave?" "Yeah, we're riding the wave." So it really was due to a couple encounters, which I can go into if you want, that led to the catalyst, which formed Ride the Wave. But prior to that, it was me, like I said, just building the business, trying to get to the culture, stuff like that.
All right, so you had like a encounter with Daryl. Like, yeah, dig
Yeah,
deeper
yeah,
into
that was
that.
the catalyst. Yeah,
Uh huh.
so basically, it was a few things. So with Ray, me wanting to find the culture, I happened to be walking in Morristown after working out one time down the street, and I met Lorenzo. And Lorenzo was a young guy, doesn't have much, underprivileged, but he was very, very high energy, really a great guy. And I thought he was talented too. He did splash paintings he had laid out. So I paid him for a painting what I thought he was worth, and the response was just so great. There were times when I was leaving the gym where I was waving to him, hey, and he was lifting me up. And I thought that was really, really amazing. And I wanted to work with him or see if I could help out in a business way, maybe point him in the right direction because he was just an artist. Long story short, I didn't end up doing that, but through him, I met Mark Robinson. Mark Robinson is the current co-host, and he's the relationship. manager, community manager for Ride the Wave currently. Very different than me. He has dreads, black gentleman that I normally would have walked past and not known we've had so much in common in the spirit. So he had his paintings and pens laid out. He's an artist when I first met him, and he ended up designing our apartment when Kristen, my wife, and I moved in. So these were things that I was doing to try to help out, but also develop friends that I normally wouldn't. So I was walking across the street one day. From my mom's house, there's a convenience store, and I was getting something to drink. And while I was walking back, there was an old beat up sort of van that was in the parking lot that I have seen before in a neighborhood where, I rode my bike, stuff like that. On the way back, I felt a feeling and a voice calling me to check on the person in the van, sort of a wave. Turned around. I decided to respond and push through the awkwardness or any fear that I had, and I moved towards the window, knocked on it. Hey, just wanted to make sure you are okay. And it was sad to me. It was sad to me that somebody could sit there for that long and nobody would approach him to make sure in my neighborhood. Really great conversation. He shared and opened up in an amazing way. I told him to wait right there. I was just going to go in and get him some food. Felt the wave come over me again a bit to get him some money to get a hotel and shower and clean up. Normally, typically, I do not do something like that, but given the circumstances, I did. He cried. I felt it. It was such an amazing interaction that when I went back to my mom's, I was emotional as well. I took his number down, didn't see him for months. I was signed up to go to the Entree Leadership Conference in 2023 in Nashville, which is a phenomenal conference done by Ramsey Solutions. So I am with my wife that Sunday. I'm leaving Monday. I see Daryl's van and I immediately spin around to go see how he's doing. He's with a friend and he looks better. He looks more vibrant in his eyes, cleaned up a bit, even some cuts in his shoulders. He told me that the interaction changed his life. Shortly thereafter, he had a back check for disability, started going to the gym. And I realized also the power in that interaction and what that was. And that's what's missing. Wearing the shoes, going up to people, and that you normally wouldn't to check on them and to engage. And it really was life changing. So I wrote the book Wavemaker, which is a repurposed story of my interaction with Daryl, followed by principles on how to empower people to approach people on the street that they normally wouldn't. Because it was developed though through NCK equipment, it's exciting because it also ties into a unique way business wise. You could tie it into your brand and it's going to be a hybrid. So we're going to eventually leverage training from the book for average people and also leadership eventually as well.
So how did that moment with Daryl? Because like you talked about how it changed his life, gave him a little bit more pep in his step. Um, just talk about how it changed you as far as um, you know your perspective on people that you see on the streets. I mean, because I'm down in Miami and I see homeless people all the time, and you just want to like I'll keep water in my car and give them water whenever I can.
Mhm.
So just talk about how it changed your outlook on life.
Completely. It'll never be the same, and I could never stop. Some of the most unique, interesting, smart people I've met are on the street, and it's interesting, and I'm learning so much about the system. Our podcast, we created a platform. We've had homeless people come on to share their stories. We've actually found a real gap, a big one, specifically in New Jersey, where transportation gap. So what happens is people are going to these, or they're expected to go to these appointments, and they can't get there, and they would have to walk 4 miles, and they're unhealthy, and they feel bad. So people feel like they're not wanted, and the environments and culture in these places. But as far as the individuals, it's been so encouragement is fuel for the spirit. And a lot of times people are more receptive when you come to them with an open mind and a good vibe. And I do a one word every year through John Gordon, Jon Gordon. He's a best-selling author and a speaker. He does great work, NFL and major corporations and stuff like that. And that year I met Daryl was in courage. So I made sure that in interactions and I researched courage and stuff like that. And I really fueled him with encouragement. And it really changed both of our lives because of that. So each individual, I think, has a unique perspective, a unique set of values that they could contribute. And I think it's really important to understand when we're walking across the street, and people are going to see that with the combination of Mark Robinson and myself as this grows, is that we do have more things in common than anybody would ever think. And it's just a matter of different avenues of journeys. I mean, and what is keeping us from that are distractions. The enemy is distracting us from the true value. And the true value, which will fill you up, you can't get from AI. You can't get from computers. It's a connection between each person and each individual. And it's up to us too. And it's up to everyday people to do it. It's not going to come from anywhere else or governments or nothing like that.
So talk about Ride the Wave and the mission and the work that you all are doing, the impact you're making on the lives of others.
We're very small. So it started in 2023. We were established. It's me and Mark right now, and we can definitely use resources. NCK Equipment, my company, run into some innocent accounting mistakes too, which were some lessons learned from my business, which were teetered a little bit, trying to stabilize. But like you had said, our grand commitment is to build an all-inclusive, modern campus for people experiencing homelessness, a university-style place where they could be accepted and not leave until they're vibrant, comfortable, they feel good, and productive. It's non-religious. It's a place where they really could get to their best selves to make, because I feel like when you're clearest, you can make the best decisions and the most positive decisions for your life when you're clean. In order to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to take the book, money, the monetization of the podcast, which we went from 0 to 100K subscribers in a little over 6 months. So eventually we're going to get that monetized with grants and donations to be able to get a concept drawing in the next 3 years and be able to lead towards building the campus. And I really am confident in my ability to lead it.
All right, so like I guess with the campus, is the focus on entrepreneurship? Is it allowing them to uh, position themselves to find employment? Find Is it going to be a place where they could stay? And
Mhm.
and I know you mentioned transportation being an issue. Like,
Yeah.
what all does it entail?
Yeah, good question. So, what we found is that even if somebody has a voucher for a house, there's so many various resources that they have to navigate. And some of these applications are a little much too. I've seen them. I could get a loan and fill out such an easy application, and some of the things they got to do with guides, and it's set up to just have people bouncing around. So the campus is like a university where somebody would have to pre-qualify, and this is all high level, concept at the moment. They go in, and if they need to have elongated detox with all the current types of medical and all the current science, whether holistic or medical, a place where they could feel welcome because environment matters. When you walk into a place, hey, welcome, come on in, that energy and that clean, it looking good and sleek and modern is very, very important. Somewhere where they could have access to clothing, food, all on site, and they can live for a certain amount of time until they graduate. Then after they are to detox, going into a place, health and fitness, where they teach you how to cook, they teach you healthy food, things like that. Then empowerment training, taking training that I've received through the years, like servant leadership, how to be a go giver, mental health strategies, but from a business perspective. People like John Gordon, supporters through the Gordon companies, Ed Milet, John Maxwell, Anthony Robbins connected to that, Damon West, are all people in the personal development and leadership space that I really admire. And I feel like it's very important that we shatter the glass ceiling and I get into that space to also bring down resources because you had mentioned what we've done for the community before. Sorry to backtrack a bit, but one of the things we did was the Unity community. So we went out and Mark Robinson painted a mural and we handed backpack out with the kids in combination with Be the Change New Jersey, which is a fantastic organization. City Relief we're partnered with, and Ancilia Catholic College out of Cameroon, Africa. We're helping them on specific projects on the back end. So we are partnering with foundations that will later lead and receiving a network of people and individuals that will later lead to the campus as well, hopefully, as we go. But that's the point. And, no tolerance, no drugs on site, nothing like that. You're out. You got to be willing to want to do it and go through the process. Like I had said before, non-religious for the reasons of not deterring anybody, but it doesn't matter what sex, race, creed, or if you're blue, because that's what this country was founded on, and that's what we should sort of make sure our practices and our principles adhere to.
So as you're starting off, is it primarily going to be a locally based organization, or will you be looking to bring in individuals from throughout the country?
Yeah, so it's a bold vision, and it's there. God has given it to me clear, so we're going step by step. We haven't gotten to the point where we're diving into the specific departments and really going into the campus. Right now, we're working on, because it's so early, trying to monetize the show, trying to get the right people and network aligned, and getting the right resources to eventually partner up, either with a contractor or, get a concept drawing first. So a concept drawing, and then us putting written programs and things like that. But we want to make sure first we have a structure of the training book and get that book to bestseller and things like that before we dig really deep into that. But I have some thoughts on that. Like you said, I mean, and I'm open to anybody's. But really, right now, we're not at the table picking apart the campus because it's going to be a big project. It's pretty
Right.
major, so
Yeah.
we got to find out where, what state, like um, get land, that type of things, which we'll do later, so we could really utilize the help now.
Okay. Good. What role does government play when it comes to like not only ride the wave but fighting homelessness on a local, state, and national level?
I'm new to nonprofit sector, being in the private sector and somebody who's been business and in sales. So I'm learning as I navigate. I haven't really yet gotten grants or I haven't connected to any government agencies as of now. I know the mission and I have an idea of where people go to navigate for resources. Um, I think because it's going to be community based. I think it should be from the inside out, from the people. This country was built on the people. It's not going to come from anywhere else. So if we could come together, or I could shatter that glass ceiling, which is a part of our strategy, and I have realistic proof that it could operate at a high level, all that will come down into building it there. And if it's community based, it'll allow us to be able to not have any restrictions. Not saying that there would be, and who knows? I mean, I'm sure that at some point we'd have to work with some governments or officials like that. I'm just not sure, how that's going to work. As we go, we'll be learning some lessons along the way, and making sure for me, we're keeping a network of really good people, that have knowledge of what's going on. Now, it's a very unique show because we could always, no matter how big it gets, bring homeless people on because Mark Robinson has a direct pulse, direct line to people in that specific community. Him and I are a divine connection, and he couldn't be more perfect person because he's well respected. He's a laid back guy. He has a non-threatening vibe. So yeah, I'm thinking that all the components are there in the back end, and it's really just a matter of time before it takes off.
What led you to starting the podcast with Mark? And just I from what I read on your website, there's a lot of similarities between your podcast and mine as far as just wanting to provide a voice to the voiceless, and
Yeah.
that everybody has a story.
hmm
What stories resonated with you so far?
Yeah, so for me, I always talk to friends, things like that, about maybe someday doing a podcast, but I never thought I would. I never really would have pulled the trigger in with it. After the encounter with Daryl, the spirit hit so hard with that. And we had to sit down and record it, the story. So July 4th was coming up. It was on that morning. I went to a library with him. We got a small room, blocked it out. I took my phone out, and I think it was like Spotify podcast, whatever it was. We just recorded it right at the table. So if you go to the very first episode, it's very raw. That's the inception. There's a lot of passion in my voice. That was the first show I've ever done. Shortly thereafter, it really was that for that reason, and to see what we can do with it. Mark Robinson, without us knowing he was going to be the co-host, came on the show as a guest. After that, we went to lunch and decided to have him as a co-host. So it really was something that I didn't expect, but I felt could be a component at that time of the vision. And I didn't have the grand vision. So originally at that time, it was to just train, to do training, empowerment training to people.
Hmm.
I had gone to a library and did some to about 5 people, and I thought it went great, but I didn't have time, with the business and managing everything like that. It's very difficult. People's phones, don't turn back on. And so I decided to go a different route, and it worked out.
Okay, cool. Any stories that just stood out so far?
Um, Heather was always a good guess. It's just, the transportation. But we've had all different kinds of shows. Anything, and I'm trying to think, there's been we're going on 50
Hmm.
soon too. So we've talked about slavery with Javon, who's my friend, and Mark. And then right after we were on such a roll, we filmed that we changed shirts and did distractions.
Right.
Because distractions is what distracts us from each other. Things like that. CJ, I was a nut in. That one was CJ because I realized that there's a formula to it and it will work and we could put it in a process when I met CJ.
Hmm.
I realized that through another interaction I had, that there is a formula. You could put your chest a certain way, radiate positivity. You could look somebody in the eye, softly say hello. So to give people skills, because nowadays people are stuck in their house. Everybody's afraid. Social anxiety. Young people are having issues sometimes, the majority talking to people. So those social skills are really important, especially now.
Hmm. Like, what's one misconception that people have about homelessness that you wish could be eradicated?
That's a really good question. That they're not people, or that I think we put things in a box. I think we categorize things too much sometimes when it comes to people anyway. I think we should categorize things, but when it comes to individuals, I think it's really important to realize that there's a spirit, there's a person in there. And if it were you and you were in pain, and I'm sorry, I might get emotional, but you didn't have the right food and you felt bad and people weren't looking at you as they walk by, it's inhumane and it's not right for us to do that. And it's about time. We grew up as a country
Hmm.
and as a people.
Dr. Todd McLean provides periodontal and dental implant services in 2 convenient locations. They offer over a decade of experience treating patients, and appointments can even be scheduled in the evenings, weekends, or early mornings. Give them a call in Chapel Hill at 919-537-9774 or in Durham at 919-484-8338, or visit them online at gumsandimplants.org.
Yeah, I think we've definitely lost sight of supporting and taking care of one another. I know you're in New Jersey where it gets cold. I'm in Florida where it's extremely hot, and
Very nice. Yeah,
in the summer,
humidity, man. It's rough.
humidity, and in the summertime or hurricane season, everybody's preparing for the worst. But like you said, with the homeless population, like they're at a disadvantage, and I think just human decency is like get somebody a coat, provide shelter, put them in a hotel room, get them some water when it's hot, or just take them somewhere safe and sound instead of just driving by and
Yeah.
like upping your window or pretending the person doesn't exist.
I also think that because after the interaction with Daryl, I mean, I did that because I felt called to, but say I
Hmm.
did not go into 7-Eleven and do that, an encouraging word. If you were to go up to somebody right now, you don't know this day and age, an encouraging word or saying you love somebody or saying, hey, you're worth it, you matter, could save a life. The suicide rates are out of control.
Hmm.
The suicides are out of control and it's our fault. And we need to stop blaming other people. It's because, and also one of the things we don't do is love tough because loving tough is really important. We're walking on eggshells and we're too afraid to rock the boat. But sometimes if somebody's doing something where, whether it's drinking or they're doing something that's destructive, you need to bring it up. And silence is just like bringing the glass right to their mouth. And that's the things that I'm learning, the importance of honesty, transparency, and to stop all that. And what I'm learning is most people will react positively if you talk to them and they have their problems too and can relate. And at the end of the day, if you're open speaking to somebody like that and they're mean or they're not good, whatever, you can then gauge your network and just be like, okay, like now I know. But those are the type of things that we could do with each other to communicate more, that'll lead to more empathy for each other, which will spill into the streets more because it
Hmm.
comes from the inside out. Damon West, who I'd love to give a shout out, who's been very supportive, um, wrote The Coffee Bean, co-signed with John Gordon. If you go to damonwest.org, he's a great guy on top of his game. And it's very simple fable, but it's so true. The environment and how you could change it like a coffee bean from the inside out. And I'm this to me has been transformative. You could step into a new paradigm, but everything that's set up around us is to keep us because our tagline is the path is to the person. This one's from the people this time.
Hmm. So with Ride the Wave, like you said, you all are gaining a lot of momentum. If someone wanted to start making a difference in their community but didn't know where to begin, what advice would you give them?
You know, I mean, I can say for New Jersey, anybody listening around that area, I sent it to the transportation gap for sure. So I would say specifically, we've uncovered something where if you were to get some vans or, some transportation for people and create a nonprofit, that would be great. And also, I think everybody has something to contribute. For $300, you can go on LegalZoom, create a nonprofit, that one you've been putting off on. But if you wanted to start slow, just engaging people slowly, be nice in line, maybe at Starbucks, or approach somebody and compliment them, or help somebody like you had said, who is homeless, and ask them questions about their lives and get an understanding of what the needs are. Dr. Bona was on the show, or maybe it was a side conversation that I had with her. She, for Be the Change New Jersey, she's wonderful. Said sometimes we could assume what other people want and bring them food, shirts, and things like that. That may not be at that time what they specifically need. So I think it's important to slowly find out what is a need in the community. Maybe contact other foundations to see what they're doing, or go online to learn about homelessness and statistics and things like that to start. Or if you're called for something else, you never know. People get free haircuts, art, whatever your specialty is. I would say just stop putting it off. Just go for it. It's worth it. Because when at the end of the day, when you look back, and God says, I was on that street corner, you never talked to me, or I should have done that. And I was in my lane the whole time and just consuming my things, and it was my family and doing, I don't know. I think that you might as well look back and say, we've served and we were able to make a difference along the way too, and not just what I needed to do in my circle.
Hmm. I guess besides Daryl and Mark, like, will some of the other friends that you've met along the way be involved in the campus activities?
Yeah. So there's other interactions too that I have. And what's interesting is we're going to do a series of books. So that Daryl story repurposed, we're going to do a story of Mark, how, which will be something our last final announcement. We have one component later that hasn't been revealed of Ride the Wave, was an amazing something else. That was an interaction where I knew it was going to work. He was a gentleman that had a stroke. But when I had left, Kristen was with me. There was a whole energy to Starbucks from that whole interaction. And Heather, among other contacts that I have, yes, they can and contribute as well as we build the network of friends. And, we start to, the problem is they don't trust anybody.
Hmm.
They've run out of trust. They've been burnt every which way. Everybody at my level or above are just on their phones, social media, babies, in their own lane. Nobody really knows what's happening down there. So, the purpose of the show, the first step is really to shed light.
Hmm. Yeah, like how can they trust anyone?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
like if you're in that situation, if you're homeless, 9 times out of 10 you have family, and you just never know the dynamic as far as whether family members tried to help and they decided they could no longer help, or whether or not the person was married and then they got a divorce and fell on hard times afterwards. That's why, like you said, the stories are so important. Trying to
Yeah.
get intel on exactly what happened. But yeah, there's no way they can trust anyone at that point.
No, and it's only by God's grace that I am not homeless. I mean, I just happened to be born where I was at the with the safety nets in place. Anything I did was self. I could have got addicted to drugs. I was experimenting prior, or I was what prevented me from getting into an accident, or something severe like that. So people have to realize that it could easily be them. And with COVID, I mean, now we know it could be taken away like that.
Hmm.
So, that kind of the empathy is what's missing. And I'll tell you what, if you were to develop a network there and things go south, you'll have people and relationships to turn to. So you're, if anything, expanding your network.
Hmm.
If the zombie apocalypse kicks in or something.
All right.
So,
So Jeff,
but
what do you want your legacy to be?
yeah, first time somebody asked me that. It's a really great question. And legacy, you nailed it with that. I mean, I see a real avenue, a lane with Ride the Wave to leave a legacy, to shatter the glass ceiling, because they're taking away generational wealth. It's an economic paradigm. It's really important that this thing has the financial means, and I get to a stabilization within my family, so I could protect my generations too prior. So now that there's a real lane to shatter that ceiling, if I could leave a legacy for campuses, because Mark and I's dream is to cut the ribbon, to be able to be replicated around the world, where we could bring as many spirits to heaven and get as many people as healthy as possible, and, have that love left over. And if through my lifetime I could bring heaven only for just a moment, then that's what I think it's all about. And I personally would rather go through the pain of such a major project and the discipline of it, or go through everything, the blood, sweat, and tears, than to look back with regret. And that would be at this point very deep regret. I'd be turning my back on God. I can't do that.
Hmm.
So yeah, the legacy aspect is massive. I mean, I really, really want to leave a legacy for my
Yeah.
family, for my friends and community.
Right. All right. So I ask this next question pretty much to all of my guests, and it's usually answered the same every time. But I kind of have a feeling with you it's going to be in the opposite direction. Do you learn more from your wins or your losses?
I learned, definitely losses. Yeah, I really do. Because what happens when I win too much? I always have to kind of keep my ego in check. I want to make sure that I'm not like getting too full of myself. Um, there could be, with too much success, like with too much win, not too, it's good to win. I'm not saying that I shouldn't win or nothing like that. I think it's great and it feels good, but the losses and the down times coming out of that are really where the lessons are. It's a pruning process, I feel like.
Hmm.
I feel like I'm in the it's a refinement process. Either there's something that I'm missing, there's something that I missed, or there's something that I have to go through in order to grow and to get sort of like a bush that you have to prune in order for it to grow to its full potential.
Right.
Um, but I also think it's we focus sometimes on losses and negativity too much. And I'll go in like for sales, for example, for NCK, maybe poke holes on, oh, why was the sale lost? Da, 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 what had happened with it? But I also think it's important, and I think Matthew McConaughey did a good job with that with Green Lights. His program in the book is recognizing the wins too with that,
Hmm.
and how to win and get there. Um, I mean, I hate it when it's happening. It's tough, and no, it's not fun, the down times. And but like for example, the issues that I had or we faced, which were relatively innocent issues that were some processing accounting mistakes with NCK about a little over a year ago, we're still struggling with. I partnered with Seafair Consultant, Hassan out of Maryland, shout out. And they're a great group. They got our back, they see our vision. I realized that I had to fill in a gap with something maybe I was not good at. So I look at it like, would I have met the people I did? Would I have had the conversations that I had to if that didn't happen? I've had things like that end up forming. I've realized that through the storm, you have to build a foundation. And building a foundation is really important no matter what's going on in the outside world. And that's what I'm working on, and that's the hardest part.
Hmm. Yeah, I thought you were gonna actually say that you learn more from your wins, like just
Really?
from, yeah, just from these relationships that you're building. Meeting amazing people and hearing their stories. That's why I thought you were gonna say wins.
You know what it is for me, the way I feel like that's like a fuel. And that gives me some thoughts and ideas with the foundation. And I really like to figure out the system and things like that. But those challenges that hit, they're the ones that bring me to the table. They're
Hmm.
like, okay. And then finding out how to obviously learn from them. And so those are what keep me humble that way.
Hmm.
So
All
people
right.
always say failure, huh? Or the losses. Yeah,
Exactly. Yep.
yeah.
I'd
But I
say,
mean, it's both though, a little, you know?
yeah, I'd say like 9 times out of 10, it's losses.
Yeah, and it's very true. I think that, and if you know how to fail, if you're somebody that has an understanding that it's just a part of the lunch and it's going to happen and it's an ebb and flow, and you're also never going to be perfect. We
Hmm.
weren't designed that way. And if you have a full understanding of that, it does help you navigate things. People are too worried about how they look, or it needs to be this way, it has to be perfect, and it's not really like that. It's more, and all the this day and age with all the video games and things like that, life is the best video game. And you're gonna go die one day anyway. We're gonna be out of this world. Might as well get out there and get the full virtual experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. What do you see when you look in the mirror?
Ooh. I see somebody that wants to do something great. I feel a bit misunderstood at times, most definitely. But that's a really good question. I'm mulling over my brain there. I'm just trying to let that one sink in. Um, Someone who has a lot going on behind the scene, and there's a lot of moving parts that I'm really meeting and finding really amazing, loving people, and also on a high level, things are connecting, but at times lonely because I'm not able to really express that to my closest circle because I'll look crazy because I'll just talk about it all the time. But I've realized that that's okay now, and I've had to learn that through an expedited learning course through this last year and a half, of it moving so quickly. Um, so it depends on what day I'm looking in the mirror, but this thing is fully integrated within me. I will not stop. I'll never stop. I'm going to continue pursuing this. And when I look in the mirror, there is that purpose and passion. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that God has blessed me with a mission while I'm still here. Because I've definitely had sometimes in the ICU, near death. I've, been John Doe at a hospital. So I felt like at almost half my life, people were always helping me out. They had to pull me out of the fire. And man, I'm so grateful that now I have the opportunity to serve in this capacity. It's exciting, and I just cannot wait to see where the journey goes. But yeah, I think that mirror reflects a few things at different times, and we all have phases, but I
Uh-huh.
really like your series of questions.
Right. So it's a whole lot more. Well, you enjoy uh, giving more than receiving, we can say.
100%. That's where, you know, that's where the spiritual food is. That's where the true currency is. That's money right there.
Hmm.
That's real money. It's not, I think that we all worship something, whether it's cars or material, money, something like that. But if we turned it to less transactional, less, business sometimes, and we were more for, like, what I'd love to see? I'd have thought these young people, they're doing their thing online with whatever they have going on. They can make so much money doing clip art and whatever they're doing. It would be really cool to see that if somebody comes up and asks you, "Hey, what do you do?" "Oh, well, I do clip art, but I also do this in the community." Most people would ask you more about what you do in the community. So one of the things with the leadership training we want to empower as people is to tie into your brand, anybody's brand, or their person, a nonprofit, so that it's common that businesses have their niche within the community so it gives back.
Hmm.
So there's multiple avenues, this could go.
Okay. All right. So, in the spirit of giving, like, just share as we prepare to close how we can support Ride the Wave and where we can find you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. If you go to www.ridethewave.org, all under one roof, everything's there. It's the description, the formation. There's some links to the show and where you could buy the book. There's an audiobook that was just released as well. And on the bottom of the page, there is a contact page, which goes to me. So if you just mention where you where you heard. If you want to volunteer, we're looking for anybody in marketing, social media specifically, to get the word out. We slowed down the show to publishing every other week due to budgeting, so we could use donations. At this point, it's early stages. I just want to thank anybody who's helped this, this far or thus far. But yeah, we really appreciate anything that anybody can do at this point.
All right. So tell us what's next. What's on that vision board besides the campus? For you, Jeff.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said before, it's really working on getting the show going and monetized. Mark and I plan to go to four universities this year to hand out flyers. We've gotten really great responses when we do on the ground marketing campaigns. We're going to go to a couple towns to hand out flyers. We're going to hopefully get a break. We're going to apply for grants and see if we could really get the studio going. So really it's focused on maintaining operations because I have to focus on NCK equipment, going step by step, not putting the horse before the cart with our processes and plans, and going from there. And we're going to volunteer a minimum of 3 times this year for our partners as well. And then also receive. A lot of people pursue opportunities. Sometimes you got to be open to receive them. So as opportunities come in, we'll navigate and we'll make adjustments accordingly.
Okay. All right. Jeff Fisher, Ride the Wave Foundation, NCK Equipment. I applaud you, sir.
Yeah,
for
you're great. Thank you.
your fight to combat homelessness.
And
And
if there's any way we could work together, or if you ever want to brainstorm on how you could better get out the community and help out in Miami, I'm glad to.
okay, yeah, let's exchange contacts and keep the conversation going.
Absolutely.
All right, Jeff. So for Stop, Look, and Listen, I'm your host, LeTroy Gardner. See you next week. Peace and blessings.
Take care. Thank you.